Hello and welcome to a special edition of Cityline. This episode is special for two reasons. First off, it's a full hour of Pride celebration, but it's also the first time we've created a version of Cityline specifically for our YouTube audience. So before we get into it, we have to give you the obligatory reminder. Subscribe to our channel, like and comment as much as you'd like, and be sure to turn on video notifications. So like I said, today we are celebrating Pride, but we know Pride is more than just a party. It's more than just a parade. It is a protest. It's for a purpose. And no one could say what Pride means better than our own Bill Rowley.
My first Pride was June of 1981, and it was the year of the infamous bathhouse raids here in Toronto, and the relationship between the police force and the community was not good. And so we didn't know that day when we marched, and I will say it wasn't a parade, we marched. When we marched, we didn't know if we were gonna get beat up, we didn't know if we were gonna get thrown in jail. It was a tough day. But that day lit a political fire in me that just has never gone out. It showed me that and told me that Pride is a platform for those people whose voices aren't heard. It's a platform for all the crazy kids and the misfits and the queer kids and the dancing queens in small towns and big cities across this country, that they have a stage to raise their voice. It's a platform to say to a publicly funded school board who refuses to raise the flag, you don't get to play that way. So for me, as much as I love the parade and I love the floats and I love the rainbows and the corporate sponsorship, I love all the stuff. For me, Pride, the strength of Pride is its political backbone and always will be. Happy Pride Day, everybody.
So well said. Thank you, Bill. And on that note, let's start this special. We've got Christian Shy and Chef Paul with us today to show us how to have the ultimate virtual Pride celebration. Nick joins us from the West Coast to explore the rich history of gender-bending fashion. And Reverend Brent Hawkes is sharing the story of the first same-sex marriages performed in Toronto. But we are starting today with Tamar and Jasmine and the history of ballroom and voguing. I'm so happy to have you both on the show today. It's something you've all seen in pop culture, whether it's Madonna's iconic music video, the acclaimed FX series Pose, or maybe the documentary Paris is Burning. The ballroom scene is a fascinating subculture that illuminates themes of race, gender, and sexuality that's celebrated all over the world. So Tamar, I'm going to start with you. What is ballroom?
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Tracy. Ballroom is a culture built off the back of Black and Latinx trans folk born out of New York City in the 60s. And it's where we basically compete for trophies, cash, and everlasting glory. And a lot of people have built careers, sustainable careers off of ballroom. And it's just a place where people are welcome, people are able to be themselves and express themselves and be celebrated for who they truly are.
Tell me a little bit about the family aspect of it, which I love.
What is so unique about the ballroom family that we built here is that it goes outside of ballroom. So this is a real family that you can run to if you need family support, if you need a place to stay, if you need money, if you need food. This is your
someone to talk to.
Yeah, this is like almost the next best thing as blood family, because sometimes our regular families don't know how to raise queer kids or teach queer kids how to be safe. So this is your next best option for preparing you about the real world.
And y'all are family, aren't you? What's your relationship?
So I'm a ballroom house mother in Toronto's Kiki scene. Shout out to the Toronto Kiki Ballroom Alliance. I'm the overall mother of Canada for the House of Louis Vuitton. But outside of that, I also have what we call gay families. So the older heads in the community will meet however you meet the younger kids. And you see something in that child that you have a way to impress on their life. Like you can better their life, help them out, make sure that they're on the right track, finish off the job that their parents might not be equipped to do. So Jasmine's not only my house child, she's also my gay daughter. So she calls me mom. We're not that far apart in age, not too far, I should say. But I'm there to help her and support her and make sure that her dreams come true. She knows how to get home safe. She knows how to protect herself when she's in heteronormative scenarios and situations, and just makes it home alive. That's basically my job as her gay mom.
And it's crucial, that navigation of life, you know? So I love that relationship exists. So Tamar, can you walk me through your first ballroom experience?
Yes, I'll talk about my first international ballroom experience. That was in Chicago about 3 years ago. They had no idea who I was. And I won the cash, I won the trophies, I sat everyone in their own city. And honestly speaking, it was a vindicating moment for me on a personal level because you get to see yourself be celebrated for things that you are told not to be as a young Black gay boy. You're told not to be this way. Don't bend your wrist. You can't wear makeup. You can't wear those clothes. You need to do this. You need to do that. Religious aspects as well. All those things built up in the Black communities for myself specifically, to then be celebrated for it and do exceptionally well and then become your name is now synonymous with that category internationally. So that was my first aha moment that I'm on the right track. I'm doing the right thing.
The Canadian tore it up. That's all we need to hear about that experience. I love that. Okay, and I want to leave this last answer really open. I would love it to be just whatever you want our viewers to know about Ballroom, its uniqueness, its tradition, how it brings folks together.
I think what makes Ballroom so unique is how unapologetically Black and queer it has been from the day it first started to where we are now. It hasn't been 100% politically correct, but that's okay because we've intact all of our traditions, all of our history. It has all remained the same. And that is how we are able to still be around today. And for me, Ballroom has been so pivotal to my growth in terms of just my career, my gender. When I started out in Ballroom, I was a drag queen identifying, and that just like being in the community and meeting people and being able to express myself, you know, I found myself as a trans woman through my own community and through being around other people like me and seeing myself on a higher level and a higher platform. You know, you get to visualize yourself that, you know, there is a world of possibilities out there for me, and that is not always an easy space to find for yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tamar and Jasmine. And before we let you go, I hear you're going to show us a few moves, like a little bit of serving face. So I want to bring in Shy, Christian, and Paul for this. I cannot say that I can do it like y'all, but I'm going to try. Give us an explanation of what we need to be doing with our bodies and our faces.
Okay, so I'll give you a brief description about face. Face consists of 5 elements: the eyes, the nose, the teeth, the skin, and
the structure.
Okay, so you must have all 5. This is a very vain category. If you do not get told every day, every other day, or at least a couple times a week that you are exceptionally gorgeous, you will not do well in this category. So, Jasmine, want to demonstrate how we can do a little face here. So you want to make sure you have a very strong entrance when you get on the runway. So that will be however you enter. So when we first see you at the back of the runway, you want to make sure you are selling it, commanding the presence of everyone that's watching. So that's kind of what Jasmine will do to kind of wake it up at the back. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do, however you wake it up, you can wake it up. And basically she's highlighting the feminine gorgeous aspects of herself. Then you'll make your way up the runway, maintaining eye contact with those that are judging you, because that's who gives out the cash. So she makes her way up, and then you want to come closer to the judges to get into the fine details. The fine details that we're looking at is the quality of your smile, the quality of your skin, how your eyes are set, and the structure of your face. So that's when you smile, you seal everything with a smile. The smile is like punctuation, if you will. So that's how you sell face.
I'm trying to do the structure thing like Jasmine, and it's not like...
Good job.
Smile, highlight your teeth, and you can see the profile of your teeth if you like Oprah.
I love it. I don't know how that looked, and I don't even care right now.
You must be the most expensive girl in the room. You own everything.
I own it all. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. All right, let's take this Pride special over to Christian now. Although festivities have been canceled again this year, you can still decorate and celebrate. Christian, you say the perfect spot is right on your front porch.
So I came up with this idea actually because of my adopted hometown of New Orleans. We all know every year they have a giant Mardi Gras parade. They employ thousands of artisans, but because of the pandemic, they didn't have one this year. So they invented a new concept, actually right here in Old Algiers, called the house floats. So they use the same artists to create these giant pop-up house floats where you can drive around instead of watching the parade.
Oh my gosh, when the camera just pulled out there, I was like, whoa, those are huge decorations, and I love it. And this is so like in tune with who you are, Christian. You never go small.
Yeah, you know me with my DIYs, go big or go home, or go big at your home. So yeah, I actually partnered with a local studio called Stronghold Studios. They're known for making their Mardi Gras floats, and I actually partnered with them because I love the one they did this year. It was St. Dolly Parton. I think Dolly could actually be great even on this Pride porch right now, right? And I know it looks like a lot, but I actually sent them over a sketch. They kind of drew it out and chopped it out for me with a jigsaw, with plywood, so you could actually do it at home. Like if you look at this cloud, it literally is just like a paint by number, Tracy. You just draw it on the plywood, cut it out with a jigsaw, and then you just paint it by hand. It actually was really quite easy.
That is very cool. Okay, like now we all want a pride porch. How do we make our own pride porch? Give us some tips.
Now, I always say you can definitely go big like I did, but you can also get some like smaller ready-to-make stuff. So for example, I picked up from Amazon some great mylar curtain, which blows weight in the wind, some great colorful rainbow pennants, even a little rainbow pom-pom. So I always say it's great to mix the sort of pre-made elements with some handmade elements. And the trick with a porch sort of float is to layer it like a theater thing, right? A foreground, a middle ground, and a background. So you get these great moments that are actually really good Instagram moments.
Oh my gosh, that is like Instagram heaven right all over your porch. I love it. But you also have the porch that can sustain that. Like that is a fantastic porch.
It's all about what you wear also. So for example, you know me, I had to wear some short shorts.
Yeah.
And picked up a great Pride tee. And one thing I'll say is if you pick up some Pride tees, and I think we said this before, make sure it's from an organization that supports Pride year-round. This is actually from Old Navy. They collaborated with an openly gay artist to make these T-shirts. The profits go back to a charity. So I think that's something really important when you're celebrating Pride to make sure we're selling it year-round, right?
Absolutely. The shortest shorts possible, I think, and also the support the companies that are doing these incredible collaborations. I love to hear that. So, of course, no party is a party without a little drink. So what are you serving when the neighbors come by?
My signature Pride cocktail is actually a watermelon ginger margarita. So cut up your watermelon in giant chunks, freeze them overnight. This means you don't have to put as much ice in your blender when you're making them to water down your drink. Added in some tequila, of course, some Cointreau, some fresh lime juice, and a little ginger syrup. We stick this guy on, lock it. You want to make sure you've got a really strong blender, one that crushes ice really well. Oh, I have one blender rule, Trace.
Yeah?
While you're blending a drink, you need to sing your favorite Pride anthem. Do you have one?
I probably have 5. Which one shall I pick? Okay, you blend and I'll sing.
Ready?
Yeah. Go.
Okay, let's go.
Walk out the door. Just turn around now. You're not welcome anymore. Na 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 na. Are we ready?
I will survive.
Woo!
We are ready, and we'll have a beautiful, perfect little cocktail. So perfectly blended, a beautiful watermelon ginger margarita. Send it to all your neighbors, and have a great Pride party, Trace.
I wish I was there with you, Christian. I know your community will love what you've created. By the way, don't forget to join our incredible Cityline YouTube community by subscribing to our channel. Now, Paul's here with some foodie fun. If your friends and neighbors are stopping by for a quick visit, Paul, you've got a sandwich that is perfect to send them off with, right?
That's right, Tracy. You know, when I think of the Pride community, I think of the spice of life. And so I wanted to do a grab-and-go sandwich that includes lots of variety, textures, flavors, heat, that's very indicative of the spirit of Pride. So I'm going to make this on a ciabatta baguette. And you can make this party style, as you can see here, or you can just do it individually for yourself. And it's going to start with some sriracha goat cheese. And now I'm layering onto here some sweet pickles, of course, some crunch, some sweetness. Again, I want a lot of variety here, and you can customize this any way you like. Some shredded red cabbage, again for crunch and for color. Some baby arugula, that'll add some pepperiness and a little bit of green. Some smoked Gouda, again, a little bit more flavor, some smokiness and a little more richness, and some spicy calabrese salami. As much or as little as you like. I'm just layering that on. And finally, just a little bit of tomato. I want some freshness, and onto that a little bit of sea salt and some black pepper. And that's it. Cap on, and that is our sandwich.
Okay, that looks amazing. I love it. I love that there's some crunch in there, and it looks like it's really filling. So how are you going to wrap for individual portions?
All right, so this is a pride party. We want this to be fun. So I've just got some beautiful festive rainbow ribbon and some parchment that I'm gonna lay over top. And I'm gonna kind of wrap it deli style. Just a little bit of parchment around and then tie it nice and tight with our ribbon. Or you could use twine if you don't have this. And it gives that nice party touch, a little bow.
I really like that idea. Now, I think that you've got something else on the menu, don't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, this wouldn't be a party without a proper drink. So I've made some rose lemonade. It's pink lemonade, and it's just a basic lemonade that I've added a touch of rose water to give it that floraliness. And to give it the color, just a slice of beet. I've always got beets on hand. I just took one slice, believe it or not, put it in there, and you get this gorgeous color. And I've got some beautiful rainbow pride cups, and I'm just gonna hand you a nice, refreshing glass with a festive straw. And on your way out, feel free to take a colorful candy bag with all the colors of pride. I've got a few bags here. You can just stuff it full, have a good time, and enjoy Pride. So happy Pride.
Okay, we're all going to Paul's house, that's for sure. Get a little bit of your sandwich, get your drink, get your candy, take off. Let's go over to Shy now for a virtual Pride party. And Shy, this one includes some very special friends, right?
Absolutely. So you know what, Trace, this year, if any other year was not this year, I would say this year would be the one that we really need to concentrate on social aspects. You know, it has really been the calling of the world for the last 2 years, and Pride should be no different. So the first thing is, I want to center everything we're going to do around today about giving back to the community in really cool and fabulous ways. Let's start off with the fact that we're probably not going to be able to have guests over, so luckily we have our fur babies. Sheena is here, and what's great about this is PetSmart.ca went online, got some really cute outfits. She's wearing her little Pride tutu, which is her Pride, her Pride shout out. They have some really cute Pride toys as well, squeaky toys, and what's great about this is that they donate the money, $100,000 every year, back to Jilson, which is an organization that really makes sure that gender equality is happening in schools across the country.
I love that information, and I love that Sheena is sitting like such a pretty pup in the tutu. Oh my goodness. Okay, so adorable. Let's move on to food now. What are we enjoying virtually, Shy?
Listen, brunch is gospel. For me, for the LGBT community, we love a good brunch. So I say, you know what? We can't have our family or friends over. Let's do a virtual brunch. We're going to create a menu. We're going to send it out to all the people who are going to be joining us virtually, so we all have the same, and really, pride it up. Get some color in the brunch items. Beautiful French macarons. This beautiful Pride cake here. I cannot take credit for the things that were made here. Ricky made these. I poured the drinks because I'm good at that.
Okay, you and I occupy the same role within our family, Shy. We can pour a mean drink.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank goodness for Ricky. So, no party is complete without some games and some entertainment. So I know you've got something that you're going to challenge me with.
Try to make them easy. There are some multiple choice, so hopefully this will help you out here. All right, Trey?
Okay.
All right, let's get to the first one. All right, first one. How many countries have legalized same-sex marriage? A, 21.
Yeah.
B, 33. Or C, 42.
I'm going to go with B, because it's in the middle.
You're right. 33. You are right. Yeah, good for you. And became the first country to legalize gay marriage was the Netherlands way back in 2001. So that was great, Tracy. You got one. Ding, ding, ding for you. Number 2, why is Pride Month celebrated in the month of June? So is it A, it was the month the first gay marriage in the world took place, B, in memory of the Stonewall riots, or C, summer outfits are way cuter than winter layers?
C is true, but I'm going to go with Stonewall. Is it B?
Oh, you're good, Trace. I'm so proud of you. Yes, of course. Pride Month is celebrated and due to commemorate the Stonewall riots, and of course, those who don't know, was one of the biggest riots in New York, where a gay hotspot was, shut down by the police, and that's where the riot started. So, Stonewall, we're with you.
I mean, we can never forget that a lot of what we are celebrating now by having fun and cocktails and sandwiches started with a riot. Riot, revolution, revelry. It's all about the joy despite the trauma. So I love that you threw some history in there, Shai. Really good. And I know there are so many great organizations that support the community. So I want to bring Paul and Christian back in to hear some of their favorites. Let's talk a little bit about charities that we can support. Paul, let's start with you.
Right. So Tracy, I think it's awesome that we live in a place where we can do this, where we can celebrate, and it's great to share treats and, celebrate that way. But we have to remember that there are 70 countries in which just intimacy with same-sex partners is a criminal act, and people can be killed in some countries just for doing this, just for talking about your love, your marriage, your special person. And so an organization that is helping to provide safe haven to people in those situations is Rainbow Railroad, and I really want to highlight them because they're doing really difficult but really necessary work, getting people out of life and death situations and relocating them to places where they can live their lives properly and fairly and freely. And so Rainbow Railroad is a really worthwhile cause, and as you can imagine, it's very expensive to get just one person out of that kind of a situation, so they need all the help they can get. So I really want to shine a light to them and thank them for the work that they do.
We absolutely need as much support as we can get for 2S LGBTQ plus folks who are asylum seekers. It is so hard. Even the journey when they actually get here is incredibly difficult. So thank you for that, Paul. Christian, how about you? Is there an organization or a charity that you can recommend that we can look up and support?
One organization that I've been really involved with for the past couple of years is CANFAR. And I think it's something really important we should all think about. Even though we're in a pandemic, and we say it's the biggest pandemic, the largest pandemic is the HIV/AIDS pandemic. It has killed over 33 million people. So it's a really big deal, and I think it's something we really need to stress, that we support and do research. Canada's actually still the one G7 country that has rising HIV rates every single year. So I think it's really important that we remember the HIV/AIDS pandemic is still around, and education is the key to stop it.
Yeah, let us never forget. Even when the news cycle tends to bury things, these are the realities that are happening right now. So thank you for that, Christian, for that reminder. And Shai, how about you? Are there any charities that you think we should put on our list to support?
There are a lot of artists nowadays, especially during the pandemic, drag artists, who have not been able to have incomes because they haven't been able to perform. So this year, there's a great initiative by a lot of them who are doing virtual performances, and we are able to invite them into our homes, into our party, by paying them through different pay apps, and really keeping that art form that is so critical and such a cornerstone to the LGBT community alive and well.
Absolutely. Creatives are suffering right now in this moment, so thank you for that. If you're having your party, make sure you are representing the corporations and the companies that support these communities all year long, as well as the artists that are part of these communities. You got to go all the way through, not just wear the rainbow, but walk the walk and talk the talk. Thank you all. Such great ideas to celebrate Pride. I love it. People often make assumptions about the gender of another person based on their appearance or their name. But these assumptions aren't always correct, and the simple act of making that assumption can send a potentially harmful message. Here to help us unpack the social and mental health impact of pronouns are Cyrus, Kane, and Tamaria, also known as T. Thank you all for being here. So let's get right into it. Cyrus, tell us about pronoun etiquette and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to normalize asking people what their pronouns are. Just as we ask people what their names are, we can normalize saying, hey, my pronouns are he, him. What are your pronouns? What pronouns would you like me to use? So just getting used to building that into our conversation is number one. That's something that we can do right away. And it's important to remember that if you mess up along the way, or if you say the wrong pronoun, just gracefully, correct yourself and move on. It's okay. We are allowed to make mistakes. We're all learning and we're trying. But it's important to not make it into a huge deal that sort of derails the conversation.
Now, what if if you don't catch it though, Cyrus? So like you're in a situation and you make a mistake and you do not catch it. I feel bad because the onus is on the person that has been misgendered to actually call you on it. If they do, what do you do in a situation like that?
You take that opportunity to, with grace and dignity and just, really thank that person for sharing with you, because it takes a lot to address, when your pronoun has been misgendered. I think that we need to practice sort of learning with each other. I'm a trans person and I have sometimes mixed up people's genders, even as a trans person, just because my brain is thinking fast and I'm not, concentrating. And I guess, I've made mistakes. And so the importance is to be able to say, hey, I understand how painful this might have been. I apologize, and I'm working on it, just to commit to that.
Good, thank you. Kane, over to you now. Can you tell us from your perspective why it's important that people put in the effort to use and or inquire about pronouns?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing I wanted to say is that with all the documentaries and trans-led archives that are coming out, I think the world is starting to understand that trans and gender nonconforming people are not new to this world, right? So we know that we have existed long before English speakers even were aware of us. So to go back to your question, I think when you think about it, pronouns are one of the most common ways that people identify and refer to us every single day. And so it can really feel like an extension of our bodies. So when you're using someone's correct pronouns, it's actually the easiest way to show them that you see and respect who they are. And on the flip side of that, when someone's actively choosing to misgender me or center their discomfort in the moment, that's actually psychological violence, right? Because it's a denial of my personhood, and it tells me that my existence doesn't matter to them, or that that person thinks they know me better than I know myself.
Cyrus, back to you for a moment. You say that pronouns can sometimes be an issue of life or death. Can you talk a little further about that?
I mean, using the wrong pronouns, particularly intentionally using the wrong pronouns, these create wounds for trans people. I mean, it really has a detrimental emotional effect. What we're saying, what you're doing when you don't, it's basically like not acknowledging our existence. And what the effect of that is that it has a very a strong impact on people's mental health. And so we know that there are very high rates of suicidality and of struggles in our community because people are dealing with extreme transphobia, sometimes from the very people who they're looking for support from most, from their family members, from their friends. So really, acknowledging that the impact of you misgendering someone, it's not the only time probably that it has happened in the day. People have maybe a million little cuts, as they say, so that by the time they get home, they're wounded from every single day of just trying to engage with the world. And how different it would be if we created a gender-affirming world.
T, welcome. Can you explain a little further what dead naming means? We haven't talked about that yet, and what emotional and mental impact that can have.
Yeah, for sure. So dead naming is when a trans person, non-binary, gender non-conforming, anyone who identifies under the gender diversity continuum is called out of their name by a name, usually a previously given name, that they no longer claim. And I love the terminology of dead naming because that's precisely what it is. It is speaking to somebody and bringing up something that is inactive and is no longer part of their life. So it is an act of resurrection for this person, actually. And it's not just resurrecting the name, it's resurrecting experiences, perceptions, the gender that they no longer claim. And so while you are simply engaging in a conversation, you have put this person in a position to combat these ideas and feelings that they are having around what you've just done. And that isn't something that just stays for the moment. That is something that continues on when we go home, can continue on for months, years even, and results a lot in a lot of invalidating feelings for us, and can also really destabilize our mental health, resulting in depression, a lot of anxiety around how we're perceived.
That is heavy. And T, I'm going to stay with you for a moment because I want to talk a little bit about what you call a gender continuum. Can you talk to us about how that plays a role in gender identity and language?
So when I think of a spectrum, I think of a start and I think of, a few notches in between, maybe some mixed colors, etc. And I think of an end. So very linear, something that does not continue. But when I think of a continuum, I think of a cycle. I think of movement. I think of fluidity, height, and depth. I think that when I use the word continuum, it gives me space to journey, to explore, to literally learn myself every day. And so that impacts the way that I use language and also present myself. Look, I'm in a dress today, just saying. I am using he, they as well. This is how I want to exist today, but maybe tomorrow I will only use they. And very rarely I also use she, and maybe call me sexy a little bit. You can we can play with this. And I think that this is a journey that has really impacted my mental health. Honestly, 10 out of 10 recommend, truly.
And that's why it's so important that every time we're introducing ourselves, you're asking your name and pronoun, because there is fluidity happening there.
Precisely.
Right? Cyrus, I want to go back to you for a moment. We're seeing more and more younger kids coming out as trans. Can you talk about how we can support them better and the community as a whole?
Absolutely. Trans kids need our love and support. They need support in schools to make sure that they're getting, a gender-affirming classroom space and support from their teachers and counselors. We want to make sure that trans kids have access to bathrooms, which is still a contested space for a lot of trans kids. They should be able to use the bathroom of their choosing. We want to make sure that trans kids are being supported in their families of origin, and that they're being supported in being able to access the life-affirming, surgeries and treatments that they may want to choose later on in life.
As you say, our support for trans people, it's life or death. So thank you for making that point. And Kane, I'm going to end this segment with you without simplifying the issue too much. You say when it comes to pronouns, it's about practice.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. So recently I was actually reflecting on some of my conversations with cisgender. So anyone who identifies with the gender that was given to them at birth. And I come across people in different work settings, and some of the feelings that are coming up for them around engaging with trans people or engaging with pronouns are nervousness and fear and honestly a little bit of shame around not getting it right. And I think all of these feelings are fair, and we can move forward with normalizing this language if folks are able to actually name those feelings. And what I want to say to that is, if that's coming up for you, it is okay to not be an expert on gender diversity and this continuum and to still be in the process of learning. There is always going to be a learning curve, and we need to do that together. However, I think it's really important to remember that during that process, you're probably going to harm someone unintentionally because mistakes happen. And I think it's important to remember that for trans folks on the other side of that, right, when we're walking through the world, we are already experiencing a lot of intentional transphobia, both in public and online. And so one of the ways I want to lead with folks to be an effective ally is to prevent that harm from happening as much as possible by practicing pronouns in your own home, whether that's with your pets, use they, them for your pets just to try it out, or doing your research. And I think that's a good place to start.
Oh, Kane, I take that to heart. Thank you, all of you, for speaking with us today. Cyrus T. Kane, incredible conversation, and we got to keep this conversation going. So thank you all for joining us here on Cityline. We want to hear from everyone watching. What is your perspective on pronoun etiquette? Let us know in the comments. Now, although Canada is considered a very progressive place, it's important to remember that specific rights for the queer community were only established not that long ago. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the first same-sex marriages performed in Toronto, and only 16 years since gay marriage became legally recognized across Canada. One of the trailblazers who paved the way for future generations to wed is Reverend Brent Hawks. Reverend, on January 14th, 2001, you married two same-sex couples at the Metropolitan Community Church in Toronto. Now, that date is important because it was a time when gay marriage was still illegal in Canada. Can you explain the legal loophole that allowed the wedding to take place?
Sure, Tracy, thank you. In Ontario, there are two ways to get married. One is the more modern way that most people are used to, where you go to City Hall, you get a license, and you find a clergy person to perform the wedding. But there's also, and that avenue was closed for us. But the second way that people could get married is a more ancient way, a more churchy way, ironically, and that's called the reading of the banns. where you go to a pastor first, or a rabbi, or an imam, and ask them if they will marry you. And if they say yes, then for 3 Sundays or 3 holy days, they read the banns and say, Jack and Mary want to get married. If anyone has any lawful reason why they may not, they are now to declare it. And if for 3 weeks that happens and there's no lawful objection, then the pastor goes ahead and does the wedding and issues the marriage license. And in that section of the Marriage Act, it said 2 persons. It never said male and female. And so because I already had a license to do heterosexual weddings, the lawyers came to us and said, Brent, we think you can do gay weddings under that section of the Act.
I hereby declare them to be lawfully married.
It was a big day. I remember it well. So on the day of this double wedding, the church received bomb threats and you received death threats. And I heard you even had to wear a bulletproof vest. So why was it so important for you to still go through with the ceremony? And please walk us through just how you were feeling on that day.
Sure. It was exciting and terrifying at the same time. The night before, I called my family in New Brunswick and said I loved them. And if anything happened, please, again, know that I loved them. And that morning, my partner and I, John, were picked up by some bodyguards and taken to the church by a different route. So in case someone was waiting to do something. And when we got to the church in the morning, I had my bulletproof vest on. I was rushed into the church and into my office. And so we had a 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock service that day, which were our regular services. And we weren't really expecting problems because the weddings were in the afternoon. But at the 11 o'clock service, a woman came up and assaulted me in the middle of the service. So that kind of increased our nervousness for the day. But the weddings were in the afternoon, and 1,000 people came to the weddings. Everybody had to be searched. There were 50 police officers in the church. I had, like I said, 12 bodyguards protecting me. I had to wear a bulletproof vest. I mean, if you can imagine, I had to walk through a corridor of police in order to do a wedding. And so there were protesters outside. There were 80 media outlets around the world. It was exciting and it was terrifying. And as soon as I walked into the sanctuary to begin the service, people stood up and they cheered and applauded because people knew that it was a historic day.
Lastly, Reverend, I'd love to ask you, just 20 years later, do you think Canada is doing enough for the 2S LGBTQ plus communities when it comes to rights?
We have a lot of work to do. Religious-based homophobia is still very active in Canada, particularly religious-based homophobia and religious-based transphobia. And so that's why I started Rainbow Faith and Freedom, a human rights organization, to confront that kind of religious-based discrimination. So there's a lot of work to do in Canada and around the world because there's still 70 countries where gay people can be arrested simply for being gay and 10 that were executed. So, you know, we have a lot of work to do, and I've always believed that a religious attack requires a religious response. And so that's why we're trying to mobilize LGBT people of faith in various faith traditions and also our allies to step up and to be a more positive voice.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Reverend, and for sharing that story and for continuing the work. We really appreciate it. Let's move on to style now. There is a deep connection between queer history and the fashion we see today. So Nick is here to talk about those who helped rewrite the rules of gendered dressing. Nick, it is so good to see you. We know the 2S LGBTQ plus community's impact on fashion has been huge. What do you think has been their greatest contribution?
First, Trace, public service announcement. We're here and we're queer, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Can I get an amen, Miss Moore?
Amen!
Amen. Thank you. Okay, in terms of contributions, Trace, there's been so many, but I have one thought, 2 words: gender bending, aka gender fluid, aka unisex. It's the buzzwords right now in fashion. But this has been going on for eons in terms of the queer community pushing against the heteronormative idea about gender as it relates to clothing. Need I remind everyone, gender is a social construct, right? The queer community, again, has been espousing this theory for decades and decades. So this piece of clothing here, Tracy, this does not have gender, right? Mm-hmm. We've been told that because it's pink and frilly and oversized that this is specifically for a woman. It doesn't exist. Gender does not have a sex necessarily, right? Neither do clothes, right? This isn't a human being, people. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't cry. But there's a long history of queer people shouting out and proud and using fashion as a conduit for self-expression when at a time their words were legally disallowed. You could not speak up against. So thinking back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s, there were laws on the books that barred, say, cross-dressing, one form of gender fluidity expression. Only in 1974 did the last city in America, San Francisco, take away the ban on cross-dressing. There was a law called the three-piece rule. Trace, this is crazy. If you were stopped by police and you did not have 3 items of clothing on you that represented your cisgender, you could be carted off to jail. So we've come a long way. Stonewall was a huge moment for gender fluidity in fashion, particularly the queer community. For the first time, we saw trans queer people giving a national platform in terms of their dress sense and articulating that this is how they felt and no one was going to take it away from them.
Okay, let's jump forward to the 80s, where you say queer culture, fashion, and gender bending found its truest expression.
The truest of the true. And listen, we don't pay homage enough to minorities within the queer community, specifically Black and brown folks, particularly trans women, Black trans women. In the Harlem ball scene of the 1980s in New York, these were the pioneers, Tracy. Certainly we saw stars like Grace Jones and Prince in the 80s and 90s. They were identified as cisgender straight, Trace, but they were wearing fluid clothing, showing that it's not just about sexuality as it relates to fashion. You can be straight and wear gender-inclusive clothing.
Okay, so now let's hit today. We're fast forwarding to now. Has gender-bending fashion found more mainstream resonance? And I would say the answer is yes.
100%. You're completely right. But who's driving this, Trace? It's kind of incredible. Gen Z, right? The most woke of generations. There's a percentage, 56% of Gen Z shoppers are shopping outside of their cisgender, which is incredible to see this young, burgeoning demographic rise up. At events like the Met Gala in 2019, right? We saw the first queer theme and the first queer exhibit, Camp Notes on Fashion. We had stars, queer stars like Lena Waithe, Ezra Miller, showcasing what it means to be fluid in dress sense. It's not about man or female. And it's really, really come a long way to today, but we still have a long ways to go.
Thank you, Nick. Great history there. And thank you all for joining us on YouTube for our Cityline Pride special. And if you want more Cityline Pride content, you are in luck. We're in the middle of our Cityline Reel on Pride YouTube live series, where we make space for long-form discussion on everything from the identity spectrum to a look at HIV and AIDS 4 decades later. Now, before you go, remember to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and engage in the conversation happening in the comments, and we will see you soon.